Princess Zira stood alone at the edge of her crystal balcony. From there, she could see the two suns slowly setting behind the silver mountains. The sky was a soft mix of violet and blue, but even the beautiful colors could not lighten her heavy heart. Once, the Starflower Empire was the strongest in the galaxy. Its cities were made of glass and light, and its name was spoken with respect. Now, everything was fading. The wars had taken their wealth. The great families had left. The royal bloodline was growing weak. And Zira was the last true princess of this empire. She was different from other people of her kind. Her skin had a soft glow, and her large eyes changed color with her mood. Some called her beautiful, but others whispered that she looked strange, even cursed. Many noble houses had refused her hand in union because of this. It wasn't just her looks. It was also her name. Her family had no power left, no army, no gold. Why would any proud house join with her? Zira turned away from the view and walked into her chamber. The room was quiet, cold, and too big for one person. Even her own court had grown small. Servants had left, guards had joined stronger cities. Only one servant remained, a quiet human named Ravi. He was not born in this world. Years ago, his small ship had crashed on the edge of the empire. The royal guards found him and brought him to the palace. He didn't speak their language at first. He worked hard, never complained, so they let him stay. But only as a servant. Over time, Zira noticed him. He moved with care. He didn't talk much, but when he did, his voice was calm and honest. He never bowed too low, never tried to win her favor. He treated her kindly, not as a ruler, but as a person. Princess, Ravi's voice came gently through the open doorway. Zira turned to see him standing at the entrance. He wore simple gray clothes and held a small tray of warm fruit and water. "You forgot to eat again," he said. She smiled weakly. "Thank you, Ravi. You always remember." He placed the tray on the table and stepped back, ready to leave. "Wait," she said, stopping him. "Will you sit with me, just for a little while?" Ravi looked surprised. "Of course, if you wish." They sat in silence for a few moments. The wind outside made the crystal walls sing a soft, sad tune. "Do you think I'm strange?" she asked suddenly. Ravi blinked. "Strange, yes," she said. "Everyone else does. They say I'm not normal, not fit for union, not worth saving." Ravi was quiet. Then he said, "I don't think you're strange. I think you're strong." Zira looked at him. "Strong? I feel broken." "You still carry your family's name," he said. "Even when others run, you still care for your people, even when they forget you. That's not weakness." Zira felt her chest grow warm. His words were simple, but they touched her heart. "Do you miss Earth?" she asked softly. He looked out the window. "Sometimes. I don't remember much, just rain. In my mother's garden." She nodded. "I've never seen rain. It's soft," he said. "Cold, but peaceful." They sat in silence again. Then Zira took a deep breath. "Ravi, I must ask you something very serious." He turned to her, his eyes steady. "I'm listening. My time is short. If I do not choose a mate soon, I will lose my title. The council will remove me, and the empire, what's left of it, will fall into worse hands." Ravi listened, his face calm. "No one wants to join with me," she said, voice trembling. "They see me as useless, hopeless. I've tried every noble house, and I'm tired. Tired of being judged like a prize on a shelf." She looked down at her hands. "So," she continued, "I thought of someone else. Someone who doesn't want anything from me. Someone who sees me, not as a princess, but just as Zira." Ravi sat very still. Zira looked up, meeting his eyes. "Would you consider becoming my mate?" The room fell silent. Even the wind stopped. Ravi's mouth opened slightly, then closed. "I know it sounds strange," she said quickly. "You are a servant. I am royal. Our worlds are far apart. But I would rather choose someone honest than someone greedy. Someone kind, rather than cold. Someone like you." Ravi looked down, thinking hard. "Princess, this is not something I ever imagined." "I understand," she said quietly. You may say no. I will not be angry. I just needed to ask. Ravi looked at her again. You're brave to ask. I don't have an answer yet, but I will think about it, truly. Zira smiled a little for the first time in days. That is enough, she said. He stood and bowed gently. Rest well, Zira, as he left the room. Zira walked back to the balcony. The stars were beginning to show in the sky. For the first time, they didn't look so lonely. Ravi could not sleep that night. He lay on the small floor mat in his quiet servant room, staring at the ceiling. The stars outside blinked through the round glass window. But he did not look at them. Zira's words echoed in his mind. Would you consider becoming my mate? Never in his life had he imagined such a question. He was just a simple man from Earth, a technician. He had no royal blood, no wealth, no power. He was not special. And yet, the princess of a fallen empire had asked him something no one else ever had, not for service, not for labor, but for something deeper. He had seen her pain. Her loneliness was quiet but heavy, like the silence after a storm. Still, she stood with pride. She treated others kindly, even when they didn't return the favor. In this palace of light and shadows, she had always treated Ravi like a person, not a tool. He closed his eyes and took a slow breath. The next morning, Ravi began his tasks as usual. He cleaned the garden stones, checked the food supplies, and lit the palace lanterns. The other workers had left long ago. Now he did everything alone. But he didn't mind Dot as he walked through the empty hallways. He saw the statues of old rulers, tall, cold faces carved in silver and crystal. None of them smiled. None of them looked like Zira. He found her in the meditation chamber, sitting by the golden fountain. She was dressed in a soft white robe, her hair tied back, her glowing skin catching the morning light. She looked up as he entered. Good morning, Ravi, she said, her voice calm. Good morning, princess, he replied. Placing her tea on the floor beside her Dot, she picked up the cup but did not drink. You didn't sleep much, did you? Ravi hesitated. No, princess. You were thinking about what I said, she said gently. He nodded. I will not ask for your answer today, she said. You may take your time. Ravi looked at her. May I ask, why me? Zira placed the cup down and thought for a moment. Because, she said, you never lied to me. Not once. Everyone else wanted something, power, land, name. But you never asked for anything. You worked hard, and you treated me like I was more than a crown. She smiled sadly. Do you know how rare that is? Ravi stayed quiet. Zira looked down. Maybe it is foolish, but I am tired of living for tradition. If I must lose everything, I would rather lose it with someone who sees me. There was silence again. Then Ravi asked, what would happen if I said yes? Zira looked up. We would need to go before the council. They will not accept it easily. But if I declare you as chosen, they must follow the law. They might try to stop us, Ravi said. Yes, she replied. Some may even try to remove me. But I am not afraid. Ravi looked at her carefully. He saw no fear in her eyes, only sadness and strength. He bowed his head slightly. Let me think more, princess. Not because I doubt you, but because I want to do it right. She nodded. Of course, Ravi. Later that day, Ravi went to the lower chambers to gather tools. There, he met old Hira, one of the last remaining palace caretakers. She had served in the empire for many years and walked slowly with a cane made of moonwood. Ravi, she said, squinting at him, you've been quiet. I'm always quiet, he replied with a smile. Quieter than usual, she said, tapping her cane. Something is on your mind, Ravi sighed. It's something important. Let me guess, she said. The princess asked you. He looked surprised. You know. Child, I may be old, but I still have ears, she chuckled. And eyes. The way she looks at you. Not with pride, but with hope. That means something. Ravi lowered his voice. Do you think it's foolish? Old Hira leaned in close. No, I think it's brave. Do you love her? Ravi looked down. I don't know, but I respect her. I trust her. She's kind, strong. She tapped his chest with her cane. Then follow that feeling. Royal blood doesn't matter if the heart is true. That night, Ravi walked through the quiet palace again. He passed the throne room, now empty. Dust lay on the steps. The golden crown sat on a stone table, untouched. He walked to the balcony where Zira often stood. She was there, looking up at the stars. I used to believe I would marry a warrior prince, she said. Hearing him behind her, someone with an army, someone loud, proud. And now, Ravi asked. She smiled. Now I just want someone who will stay. Ravi stepped beside her. Princess, I've thought about it. She turned toward him, eyes wide. I don't know what the future holds, he said. But I do know that you're the most honest soul I've met. If you still want me, I will walk with you. Zira's eyes filled with light, shifting from blue to gold, the color of joy. Thank you, Ravi, she whispered. He bowed slightly, not as a servant, but as her equal. Zira took his hand gently in hers, always. 2 days had passed since Ravi gave his answer. Zira felt like a heavy stone had been lifted from her chest. She walked through the palace with lighter steps. Her mind calmed for the first time in many weeks, but she knew peace would not last. The Starflower Empire, even in its weak state, still followed the old traditions. The Council of Nobles had power, and although Zira was the last true princess, her decisions still needed their approval, especially for something as serious as choosing a mate. Ravi and Zira sat together in the Hall of Echoes, a round chamber, where important announcements were made. The walls reflected sound, making every whisper feel loud. This is not going to be easy, Zira said softly. I understand, Ravi replied. She looked at him with a kind smile. But I'm glad you're here. Later that day, Zira stood before the High Council. There were only 7 members left, dressed in long robes, their faces covered by silver veils. They sat on high chairs, looking down at her. One of them spoke. His voice was sharp. Princess Zira, have you called us to announce you're chosen? I have, she said. Her voice clear. Another council member leaned forward. Which noble house does he belong to? Zira stood tall. He is not from any house. He is not of our kind. He is a human named Ravi. The room fell silent. One of the council members gasped. A servant? The sharp-voiced one said, You bring shame to your name. Another added, This is a joke, a poor attempt to gain attention. Zira kept her head high. He is kind, honest, brave. I choose him not because of his blood, but because of his heart. The eldest council member finally spoke, voice slower but firm. This has never been done. It breaks tradition. Zira replied, Tradition has not saved us. We are falling, and we all know it. The nobles have turned away. The people are losing hope. If we do not change, we will disappear completely. The old councilman looked at her for a long time. Then let the law speak, he said. If he completes the ancient rite of union, we must accept him, no matter where he is from. The others began to protest, but the old man raised his hand. Law is law, he said. Let the stars decide. That evening, Zira explained the right to Ravi in the garden. The rite of union, she said, is a test. It was used long ago, when bloodlines did not matter. It proves that two people are connected in spirit, not just name. What do we have to do? Ravi asked. We must journey to the twin moons of Leorin, she said. Face the trials there together. If we pass, the council must accept us. And if we fail? He asked. Zira looked at him, eyes serious. Then I lose my title, and you will be forced to leave. Maybe worse. Ravi nodded slowly. Then we won't fail. The next morning, they left the palace in a small ship. Zira flew it herself. She had learned long ago, in case she ever had to escape alone. Ravi sat beside her. Looking out the window, the stars moved slowly around them, silent and endless. Are you afraid? Zira asked. He shook his head. Not if you're with me. Zira smiled. She did not speak, but her heart was full. When they reached the twin moons, the ship landed on a wide, rocky plain. The ground was red and dusty. The sky was dark, with glowing clouds of light dancing above. This place feels old, Ravi said. It is, Zira replied. The trials happened inside the stone circle. They walked together to the center of the moons, where 12 tall stones stood in a perfect ring. In the middle was a round platform glowing with blue light dot as they stepped onto the platform. A voice echoed in the air, deep and ancient. Do you come as one? Zira held Ravi's hand. We do. Then face what hides in your heart suddenly. The world around them shifted. Ravi found himself standing in a desert, alone. The wind was hot. The sun burned his skin. Then a voice called out, his mother's voice, from Earth. He turned and saw her, standing in the distance, calling his name. He began to run toward her. But the sand beneath him turned to water. He fell, sinking deep. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't move. I don't belong here. He thought, this isn't my world. Then he heard Zira's voice, like a thread pulling him up. Ravi, you are enough. He reached up, and light broke through the water. He stood again, strong. Zira's trial was different. She stood in a mirror room, facing copies of herself. Each mirror whispered her fears. You are weak. No one loves you. You are a broken star. She closed her eyes, holding her ears. Then she heard Ravi's voice. You are more than they say. You are Zira. She opened her eyes and smashed the mirrors. Light poured into the room. The two of them met again in the center of the stone circle. The blue light glowed brighter. The deep voice returned. You have faced truth. You have held each other. You're one. The stones lit up, one by one. Then silence. Ravi looked at Zira. Did we pass? She nodded, smiling. We did. They returned to the palace 3 days later. The council met again. Zira stood tall, and Ravi stood beside her. The rite is complete, she said. I declare Ravi as my chosen. The old councilman stood and nodded. Then let it be so, he said. The law accepts him. He is one of us. The other members had no choice. They bowed their heads. Zira turned to Ravi. And for the first time in her life, she felt like she wasn't standing alone. After Zira and Ravi returned from the twin moons, the palace felt different. The air seemed lighter. The silent halls were no longer cold. A few old servants began returning, curious after hearing rumors that the princess had chosen a human as her mate and completed the ancient rite. But not everyone was pleased. The council had accepted Ravi by law, but some nobles outside the palace were angry. They whispered behind closed doors. They laughed in private. They saw Zira's decision as shameful, a desperate act from a failing ruler. Within a few days, messages began arriving from nearby cities. Noble families refused to recognize the union. Some even said they would no longer support the Starflower throne. Others hinted at removing Zira from power completely. Zira sat in her study, reading the cold words written on fine paper. Do they all hate me this much? She whispered. Ravi, standing beside her, shook his head. They don't hate you. They fear change. They fear you, she said quietly. You are not from here. You are human, and they don't want someone like you to be part of our future. Ravi looked at her with calm eyes. Then we show them what our future can be. Later that week, the council called for a public gathering in the Hall of Stars. It was the largest chamber in the palace, with silver floors and a roof made of clear crystal, showing the sky above. Thousands of citizens were invited, even visitors from nearby planets came to see the human who dared to stand beside the princess. Zira wore a deep blue robe, with silver leaves embroidered along the edge, a sign of peace and courage. Ravi stood at her side, dressed in a dark cloak made from the royal banner, now cut and shaped just for him. As they entered the hall, the crowd grew quiet. Zira walked to the center and raised her hand. I speak not as a ruler today, she said. I speak as someone who has lived in silence for too long. The hall remained still. My name is Zira. I am the last princess of the Starflower line. I have watched our empire fall, not from war, but from pride. Her voice was strong. Now, we forgot what made us great. It was not our blood or our wealth. It was our people, their kindness, their strength, their heart. She looked at Ravi. This man stood by me when others turned away. He is not noble by birth, but he is noble in spirit." A murmur passed through the crowd. "I chose him, not because I had no choice, but because I saw in him what we have forgotten: honesty, courage, and compassion." Ravi stepped forward. He was not used to speaking in front of crowds, but he saw Zira's hand gently touch his. It gave him strength. "I came from Earth," he said. "I was lost, alone, but Zira gave me a place, a name, and trust. I did not ask to rule. I asked to serve, not as a servant, but as a partner." He looked at the crowd. "I want to help build something new, not for power, but for peace." Silence followed. Then, slowly, some clapped, then more, until the hall filled with sound. Not everyone clapped, but enough did. Zira smiled. But while the people showed support, trouble was growing outside the palace walls. In a dark chamber beyond the mountains, a noble named Lord Tavar slammed his fist on the table. "This is an insult," he growled. "A human? Beside the Starflower throne?" Others around the table nodded. Double quotes. "She grows bold," said Lady Senya. "She will soon gather followers." "We must act now," said Tavar, "before the people forget who truly holds power." They planned in silence, shadows hiding their anger. Back at the palace, Zira and Ravi walked through the garden. "The stars are brighter tonight," Zira said. "Maybe they are watching us," Ravi replied with a small smile. She laughed softly. "Do you think we can really change this place?" "I think we already started," he said. Just then, an old caretaker ran toward them, breathless. "Princess, come quickly. There's news from the outer ring." Zira's heart tightened. She followed the caretaker into the communication room. Screen showed a burning outpost, one of the Empire's few remaining support stations. A message played. "This is Station G4. We are under attack. Unknown ships, fast. Weapons." Then the screen went black. Zira looked at Ravi. "This wasn't a random attack. Someone is trying to shake us." Ravi nodded. "Maybe Lord Tavar." She clenched her hands. "He would rather burn what's left of the Empire than see me rise with someone like you." Ravi didn't speak, but his jaw tightened. "We must protect the people," Zira said. "We won't run." The next morning, Zira sent ships to guard the nearby regions. She also sent peaceful messengers to outer villages, asking them to come under her care once again. Not as rulers, but as protectors. The people saw her efforts. They saw Ravi beside her. Always calm, always steady, a young girl in the city. Square whispered to her mother, "I like the human. He doesn't shout like the old nobles." And in that small voice, hope was born. But in the shadows, Lord Tavar prepared for war. "The princess must fall," he said coldly, "and with her, the human she protects." Storm clouds gathered above the palace towers. The once bright sky of Varela now looked dark, as if the stars themselves held their breath. Everyone inside the palace felt it. Something was coming. Princess Zira stood in the war room, staring at the floating map in front of her. Red lights blinked in the outer ring. Another outpost had gone silent. She turned to Ravi, who stood quietly beside her. "They are testing us," she said, "little by little." Ravi nodded. "They want you to react in fear." Zira looked at the map again. "We must show them strength, but not with weapons alone." Councilman Eller, the oldest among the advisors, stepped forward. "Princess, your name still holds power, but it is fading. If you want the outer worlds to stand with you, you must win their hearts, not just their loyalty." Zira understood. "What do you suggest?" "The trial of unity," Eller said. Ravi tilted his head. "What is that?" Eller explained long ago, when two rulers from different worlds wanted to prove their bond. They traveled together across the plains of fire, a place filled with storms, wild beasts, and tests of courage. If they returned alive and united, the people accepted them, no matter their blood. Zira thought for a moment. "Where are these plains?" "On the old moon of Soraka," Eller said. "It is far, but the journey will prove your strength." Zira looked at Ravi. "Will you come with me?" He smiled slightly. "Where else would I go?" Their ship left at dawn. Only a few guards came with them, and even they stopped at the edge of Soraka's surface. The moon was covered in black stone, red rivers of heat, and sharp winds that howled like wild animals. Zira and Ravi stepped out together. Dressed in light armor, each carried a small pack of supplies, food, water, and nothing more. "This place is alive," Zira whispered, looking around. Ravi agreed. "It's watching us." Their path was marked by ancient stones, glowing faintly in the dark dust. They followed the path into the deep plains, knowing the trials would begin soon. By the second day, the weather changed. Lightning flashed across the sky, but no rain came. Hot winds rose from the ground, pushing them back. They wrapped cloth round their faces and leaned into the wind. "Keep moving," Zira shouted. Ravi held her hand as they climbed over sharp rocks. He slipped once, cutting his palm, but said nothing. Zira saw the blood and stopped. "You're hurt." "It's nothing," he said, tying a cloth around it. She looked into his eyes. "Don't hide your pain." "Not from me," Ravi nodded slowly. "Then I won't." They walked on together. That night, they camped in a cave lit by red crystals. Zira looked up at the ceiling. "My ancestors never did this. They ruled from thrones, not fire." "Maybe that's why their rule ended," Ravi said. Zira smiled. "Maybe you're right." She looked at him seriously. "Do you ever regret saying yes to me?" Ravi shook his head. "Never. I may not belong to your world, but I belong with you." Her heart warmed at his words. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the wind outside. The next trial came at dawn. As they crossed a narrow stone bridge, a roar echoed through the canyon. From the shadows came a creature, large, four-legged, with dark scales and glowing eyes. It blocked their path, growling low. Zira pulled out a light blade, but Ravi held her arm. "Let me try something." He stepped forward slowly, palms open. The creature growled louder, stepping closer. Ravi knelt down, his eyes soft. He spoke gently. "We are not here to fight. We are just passing." The creature stared at him. For a moment, there was silence. Then, slowly, the creature stepped aside. Zira looked at Ravi with wide eyes. "How did you do that?" "I don't know," he said. "Maybe it saw I meant no harm." They crossed the bridge safely. By the fourth day, they reached the center of the plains. A giant stone stood there, covered in glowing marks. Zira touched it. A bright light surrounded them both, and suddenly, they were pulled into a vision. Zira found herself in a great hall filled with shadows. Voices whispered all around her. "You are not enough. You let your empire die. A real ruler would never choose a servant." She fell to her knees, covering her ears. Then she felt Ravi's hand in hers. "Zira," he said gently, "I see you, and I choose you." The voices faded. Ravi, in his own vision, stood in front of a mirror. Inside it, he saw himself back on Earth, a worker in a small lab, forgotten, nameless. Then he saw himself here, standing beside Zira. The mirror whispered, "You are still nothing. You don't belong." But then Zira appeared beside him. She took his hand and said, "You are more than where you came from. You are part of something new." The mirror cracked. Light filled the space. They both woke up beside the stone, holding each other's hands. Zira looked at him. That was the last trial. Ravi smiled. "And we're still together." When they returned to the palace, the people gathered in the courtyard. Zira and Ravi stood before them, dressed in the clothes they wore on Soraka, marked by dust, heat, and proof of their journey. Councilman Eller stepped forward. They walked the plains of fire and returned united. The crowd was silent. Then, slowly, a voice shouted, "Long live the princess!" Another shouted, "Long live the chosen!" The voices grew louder, stronger. The people cheered. Zira looked at Ravi. "They see you now." Ravi held her hand. "No, they see us." And above them, the stars blinked like fireflies, as if the galaxy was watching and smiling. The light in the palace was different now, not because the crystal towers shone brighter, but because hope was growing. The people whispered about the princess and the human who stood beside her, no longer as servant and ruler, but as partners. Zira and Ravi walked through the palace gardens, where flowers of blue and silver bloom even in the warm night. The air smelled sweet and fresh, a sign that change was coming. I heard some nobles still talk against you, Ravi said quietly. Zira smiled. Let them talk. Change always scares those who hold the past too tightly. He nodded. Do you think the Empire will accept us fully? She looked up at the stars. They have to. The old ways have failed us. New ways are the only hope. Suddenly, a soft sound came from behind a tree. A young girl stepped forward, her eyes wide. Princess Zira, she said shyly. My name is Neela. I want to help you. Zira knelt to meet her gaze. Thank you, Neela. How can you help? Neela smiled. I want to learn from you, to help others believe in you and the future. Zira took her hand. Then you will be part of that future. Word spread quickly through the cities and villages. Stories of the princess and her mate inspired many, especially the young. For the first time in years, people felt they could hope again. But not all the nobles were happy. Lord Tyvar's anger grew. His power was slipping, and he could feel the tide turning against him. One night, he met with a group of his loyal followers. We cannot allow this human to rise, he hissed. He threatens our way of life. We must stop him before he becomes stronger. His followers nodded. Their faces darked out back in the palace. Zira and Ravi worked hard. They held meetings with city leaders, listened to the needs of farmers, teachers, and workers. Ravi surprised many with his simple ideas and calm words. He never acted like a prince who looked down on others. Instead, he listened, he learned, he shared. One day, Zira watched from a balcony as Ravi helped repair a broken water pipe in the village. Children laughed and followed him, calling him Prince Ravi. Though he blushed at the name, Zira's heart swelled with pride. But the peace was fragile. One morning, a messenger rushed into the palace, breathless. Princess, Lord Tyvar's forces are marching toward the capital. Zira's face grew serious. Prepare the defenses. We will not let fear rule us. Ravi stood beside her. We fight for our people, not for power. Together, they rallied the guards and citizens. The city gates closed. People stood ready, not just soldiers but farmers, merchants, and families. Zira addressed them all. This is our home, our future. We stand together, no matter who we are. The crowd cheered. When Lord Tyvar's army arrived, they found a city united. The battle was fierce but brief. The people's courage surprised many. Ravi fought alongside Zira, not with weapons, but with plans and words, guiding defenders to protect without unnecessary violence. Finally, Lord Tyvar's forces retreated, defeated not just by strength, but by the will of a united people. After the battle, the city celebrated. Zira and Ravi stood together before the crowd. You showed the world what true strength is. Zira said, it is not blood or power. It is unity and kindness. Ravi added, together. We are stronger than any fear or hate. The crowd cheered loudly. That night, Zira and Ravi sat under the stars in the palace garden. We have come far, Zira said softly. But there is still much to do, Ravi replied. She nodded. But with you, I believe we can. They held hands, looking up at the shining stars, a new kind of royalty for a new time. The first light of dawn painted the sky in soft pink and gold. The palace of the Starflower Empire was alive with sound, laughter, music, and voices filled the halls for the first time in many years. Princess Zira stood on her balcony, looking out over the city she loved. The people below were celebrating the end of old fears and the beginning of a new time. Ravi joined her, his hand warm in hers. Look at them, Zira said softly. They believe in us now. Ravi smiled. Because you showed them what true leadership means. She looked at him. And you? What do you see when you look at our future? He thought for a moment. I see hope. Not just for us, but for everyone. The days that followed were busy, but full of joy. The princess and her mate worked side by side, listening to the people's needs and dreams. New laws were made to protect the weak, to share the empire's wealth fairly, and to bring peace to the outer worlds. The council had changed, too. Some old nobles left, unwilling to accept the new ways. but many stayed ready to build something better. Zero was no longer alone. One afternoon, a message arrived from the distant planet of Luma. The leaders there wished to visit and discuss. Joining the Starflower Empire's new vision, Zira and Ravi prepared to welcome them. It was a sign that the Empire's hope was spreading beyond their home world. As they waited in the Great Hall, Zira turned to Ravi. "Do you remember when I first asked you to be my mate?" He laughed softly. "How could I forget? It was the most surprising question of my life." She smiled. "And you said yes, yes," he said, "because I saw you. Not the princess, but the person." They held hands tightly. The arrival of Luma's leaders was a celebration. They brought gifts, stories, and promises of friendship. Zira spoke to the gathering. "We are no longer divided by old rules or fear. Together, we can create a future where all are valued." Ravi stood beside her, proud and calm. The people cheered. Yet, even with new friends and allies, challenges remained. Some far-off systems still doubted the change. Rumors of rebellion whispered in dark corners. One night, as Zira and Ravi walked through the palace gardens, a quiet voice called out. It was old Hira, the caretaker who had once encouraged Ravi to follow his heart. "Princess Ravi," she said, "the road ahead will not be easy. But remember, the greatest strength is in standing together." Zira nodded. "We know, and we will not give up." Ravi smiled. "Because together, we are stronger." Time passed. The Starflower Empire began to heal. Cities were rebuilt. People found work and peace. The sky above their world shone brighter, reflecting the hope inside their hearts. Zira and Ravi's story became one told to children, a tale of courage, kindness, and the power of love beyond blood and title. One evening, as they watched the stars from their balcony, Zira whispered, "We changed the star's fate." Ravi squeezed her hand, "And we will keep changing it, together." The galaxy was wide and full of mysteries, but the Starflower Empire was no longer a forgotten place. It was a home, a place where hope lived, and where two very different souls had proven that love and trust can build a new future.